Have you ever had the ground ripped out from beneath your feet, leaving you gasping for air and questioning everything you thought you knew? I have. And it wasn't just any betrayal. It was a betrayal so calculated, so vile, it still sends chills down my spine. My boyfriend of 3 years cheated on me with my aunt, and she would call me, yes, call me, while they were having sex. It wasn't a coincidence, it was a sick game, and I was the unwitting pawn. But to truly understand how twisted this story is, you need to know how it all unfolded, because no betrayal this deep happens overnight. It's a series of cracks, hidden just beneath the surface until the whole thing shatters in the most spectacularly horrifying way. Ryan and I met at a mutual friend's party. He was magnetic, the kind of guy whose presence lit up a room. Within weeks, I was hooked. He wasn't just my boyfriend, he was my best friend, my rock, my safe place. Then there was my Aunt Lorraine. Glamorous, wild, and utterly unpredictable, she was the kind of woman people noticed. In my family, she was infamous for her dramatic relationships and scandalous behavior, but to me, she was more than that. She was my confidant, the one who told me to always put myself first, who gave me advice about life and love. She was the aunt I looked up to, despite her flaws. From the moment she met Ryan, something shifted. At first, I thought it was harmless. She was just being her usual flirtatious self, the way she was with everyone. She laughed a little too hard at his jokes, brushed against him a little too often, but I told myself it was nothing. I trusted Ryan. I trusted her. Then came the phone calls. They started casually enough. Lorraine would call late at night, asking me questions about work, family, or whatever random thought popped into her head, but there was always something off. She sounded breathless, almost amused, like she was holding back laughter. One night, I distinctly remember her asking, "What's Ryan up to right now?" I told her he was working late, and she let out this strange little laugh, like she knew something I didn't. I brushed it off, but the calls kept coming, always at odd hours, always with that same unsettling tone. Around the same time, Ryan started pulling away. He'd disappear for hours, claiming he was stuck at work or meeting up with friends. When he was home, he was distant, his phone glued to his hand. I didn't want to be that girlfriend, so I gave him space. But the doubts started creeping in, whispering in the back of my mind. Then there was the day I found a pair of earrings in his car, gold hoops that didn't belong to me. When I confronted him, he shrugged it off. "They must be from one of my co-workers," he said. "She probably dropped them when I gave her a ride." It sounded plausible. Almost. The first real crack appeared at my birthday party. Ryan had gone all out, booking a private room at a fancy restaurant and inviting everyone I loved. But something felt off from the moment Lorraine walked in. She was wearing this low-cut dress that screamed for attention, and the way she hugged Ryan was too familiar. Throughout the night, I caught them stealing glances at each other. Once, I even saw Ryan's hand brush against hers under the table. My stomach twisted, but I told myself I was imagining things. Surely I was overreacting, right? The final straw came one Friday night. Ryan was working late, and I was home alone when Lorraine called. Her voice was dripping with sweetness, but there was a smugness to it that made my skin crawl. "What's Ryan doing tonight?" she asked casually. "He's at work," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, really?" she said, her tone laced with amusement. "That's interesting." And then I heard it, a man's laugh in the background. Ryan's laugh. My heart stopped. "Where are you?" I demanded. She hesitated just for a second before saying, "At home, of course. Why?" I hung up. The next day, I decided enough was enough. I needed answers. Ryan's phone was always password protected, but that morning he left it unlocked on the kitchen counter while he went to shower. My hands shook as I scrolled through his messages. And there it was, an avalanche of evidence. Texts from Lorraine, explicit and undeniable, photos of the two of them together, laughing, kissing, even worse. My stomach churned as I read their conversations, filled with cruel jokes about me. "She has no idea," Lorraine had written in one message, followed by a string of laughing emojis. She's so naive, Ryan replied. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room, but I wasn't done. I wanted to see it with my own eyes, to catch them in the act. That night, I followed Ryan. He told me he was going out for drinks with a friend, but I knew better. I trailed him to a hotel on the edge of town, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I watched from the parking lot as Lorraine arrived, stepping out of her car like she was walking onto a runway. They kissed, right there in the open, before heading inside. I waited 20 minutes before marching into the lobby, my fury boiling over. I'm looking for a couple who just checked in, I told the receptionist. Tall guy, dark hair with a woman in a red dress. The receptionist hesitated. I'm sorry, ma'am, but they're my family, I lied, tears streaming down my face. It's an emergency. Reluctantly, she gave me their room number. When I burst into that room, the look on their faces was priceless. Lorraine was lounging on the bed in nothing but a silk robe, while Ryan stood frozen, his shirt half unbuttoned. What the hell is this? I screamed, holding up my phone, ready to record every second. Ryan stammered, I can explain. Explain? I shouted. Explain how you've been screwing my aunt behind my back? Explain why you've been laughing at me like I'm some kind of idiot? Lorraine, of course, didn't miss a beat. She smirked, lighting a cigarette like this was some kind of twisted soap opera. Oh, sweetheart, she said, blowing smoke in my direction. You really should have seen this coming. Her words hit me like a slap. You're disgusting, I spat. You're supposed to be my family. And you're supposed to be smarter, she shot back, her eyes glinting with malice. The scene that followed was chaos. I screamed, they yelled, and eventually, hotel security was called to break it up. But not before I made sure to shout loud enough for every guest on that floor to hear exactly what was going on. The fallout was brutal. My family was thrown into turmoil, with everyone taking sides. Lorraine claimed I was lying, that I was jealous of her relationship with Ryan. My parents didn't know what to believe. As for Ryan, he had the audacity to show up at my apartment a week later, begging for forgiveness. He stood on my doorstep, tears streaming down his face, saying he'd made a mistake, that he still loved me. You didn't make a mistake, I told him coldly. You made a choice, now live with it. And I slammed the door in his face. Months have passed, and I'm still piecing myself back together. Trust feels impossible, but one thing's for sure, I'll never ignore my instincts again, because sometimes the people you trusted the most are the ones who'll hurt you in ways you never thought possible.